It was early morning, and the neighborhood lay quiet under the soft light of dawn. Then the stillness was shattered. Neighbors heard shouting, loud crashes, and suddenly, silence. When police arrived and entered the apartment, they found chaos everywhere. Blood stained the floors, shards of broken glass littered the rooms, and at the center of it all lay something far more disturbing. This was no random act of violence. It was a tragedy born from the very heart of a family. Igor was born on May 17, 1997, in São Paulo, Brazil. From the start, his life was woven into a large and complex family tapestry. His father had relationships with several partners over the years, resulting in many siblings. This unconventional family structure shaped Igor's character, instilling in him resilience and a keen awareness of the world around him. Amid the complexity, one bond stood out above all: the close connection he shared with his younger sister, Marceli. As a boy, Igor was determined and restless. Ambitious and driven, he possessed an entrepreneurial spirit that would define much of his adult life. Business was his true calling. He had a natural talent for spotting opportunities and never hesitated to take risks to build something of his own. These qualities earned him respect in his community and established him as a rising figure in the business circles of Praia Grande, a coastal city that would become central to his story. While his professional life flourished, his personal life was more turbulent. He had a distant relationship with a child from an earlier romance that ended without lasting stability. Then, toward the end of 2018, everything seemed to change when he met Rafaela Costa, a year younger than him. To Igor, Rafaela was striking, not only for her beauty, but for her determination, a trait he found magnetic. She too longed to build a family, and this shared dream forged an instant and profound bond between them. Their relationship moved swiftly. In June 2019, they welcomed their first child together, a moment that marked a turning point for Igor. Family became his anchor, the foundation of his values, and his deepest pride. He did not hide this love. On social media, he openly expressed admiration for Rafaela and affection for his children, making clear how much they meant to him. By 2022, at just 25 years old, Igor had launched his first business, a car dealership. As the company grew, so did his ambitions. Soon after, he established a marketing firm and expanded his automotive ventures by opening a second branch dedicated exclusively to motorcycles. This new project was different. It was built in partnership with Mario Vitorino, his brother-in-law and best friend. Mario, married to Marceli, shared with Igor not only long business days, but also family moments and an unshakable loyalty. Igor was usually selective about who he let into his inner circle, but with Mario, he let down his guard. Their friendship grew quickly, marked by trust and brotherhood. A similar closeness developed between Rafaela and Marceli. More than sisters-in-law, they became true friends, supporting one another with honesty and complicity. In time, Igor decided to take the next step with Rafaela. On their 5th anniversary, he proposed marriage. She accepted, and for a moment, their lives seemed perfectly aligned. But the wedding never came. Instead, their relationship began to unravel. Rafaela described episodes where alcohol became a destructive force in Igor's behavior. Under its influence, he grew jealous, controlling, and verbally aggressive. Though he never physically attacked her, one night at a bar, his temper escalated into a fight that led to criminal charges, leaving a mark on his record, though without lasting legal consequences. Challenges continued. Both Igor and Mario faced an investigation for alleged money laundering. They were ultimately acquitted, but the case generated gossip and suspicion, clouding their reputations with uncomfortable rumors. On July 24, 2024, Rafaela made a difficult decision. She chose to separate from Igor. He resisted at first, but eventually respected her choice and moved temporarily into another apartment he owned. During this time apart, Igor focused on drastic changes. He believed that transforming himself could win Rafaela back. Determined, he adopted healthier habits, dedicated himself to losing weight, and, most importantly, abandoned alcohol and other substances that had fueled his temper. For nearly a month, he worked to rebuild not just his body, but his self-control. His efforts seemed to pay off. By the end of August, the couple decided to give their relationship another chance. Igor returned home, and for a brief moment, normalcy seemed restored. But peace was short-lived. The reconciliation collapsed almost as quickly as it had begun. By the end of August, just a month after their first separation, they parted ways again. It was in this fragile context that the fateful night of Friday, August 30th, 2024, unfolded. That afternoon, Igor dropped off his children at his mother's house, promising to return later to spend the night. Once free, he joined Mario at a party organized by one of Mario's brothers. The event was an annual tradition, this time celebrating their favorite football team's victory. For both men, it was a chance to escape the shadows of their troubled personal lives. Igor was not the only one suffering a broken relationship. Mario, too, was going through a separation from Marceli. Though their divorce was not finalized, they had been living apart for months. That same night, in another part of the city, Rafaela and Marceli went out together. They shared dinner and drinks at a restaurant, then decided to head to the very same party, despite knowing their former partners would be there. Their intention was to meet mutual friends and enjoy the night. Inside the gathering, the atmosphere was tense. The women stayed in one corner, the men on the opposite side. Words were not exchanged, though glances occasionally crossed the room. As dawn approached, Rafaela and Marceli left together. They climbed into Rafaela's car, and she drove Marceli to the apartment where she was staying. Moments later, Igor and Mario also left the party. Igor tried to request a taxi through a ride-hailing app, but Mario insisted on giving him a lift instead. It was a choice that would alter everything. At daybreak on Saturday, August 31st, 2024, the quiet of a Praia Grande neighborhood was shattered. Disturbances were reported from an apartment building, and the building manager, concerned after hearing the loud noises, rang the doorbell several times. When no one answered, she called the police. Officers arrived quickly, but even their repeated knocks went unanswered. With the help of a locksmith, they forced the door open. Inside, the scene was chilling. Bloodstains trailed across the kitchen, living room, and dining area, leading deeper into the apartment. Furniture was overturned, and the entire space looked as if chaos had exploded within its walls. Following the trail, officers reached a bedroom where the sight awaiting them was far worse. On the floor lay the body of a young man, Igor, just 27 years old. A toppled piece of furniture, once fitted with mirrored doors, lay across his body. The glass had shattered, scattering sharp fragments throughout the room. In the bathroom, investigators discovered a bloodied kitchen knife taken from a drawer. When they checked with building staff and reviewed security cameras, authorities confirmed what was already suspected. The apartment belonged to Marceli, and the victim was indeed her brother. A family celebration had turned into a family tragedy, one no one present at the party could have foreseen. No one else was found at the scene, yet the crime scene spoke volumes. The level of violence was extreme, suggesting from the start that this case would become one of the most publicized in Brazil. In the days that followed, the details that emerged only deepened the shock. Forensic experts confirmed Igor had been killed where his body was found. He suffered multiple blows and at least 40 stab wounds, concentrated mainly on his torso, head, and back. The bloodied kitchen knife recovered from the bathroom was identified as the murder weapon. As the brutal case dominated headlines nationwide, investigators combed through building security footage. The recordings allowed them to reconstruct a precise timeline of the night. At 4:32 a.m., Marceli and Rafaela arrived together by car. They parked at the entrance and took the elevator to the 4th floor. A little over an hour later, cameras captured Rafaela alone entering the elevator and leaving the building. Just 13 seconds after her departure, another vehicle arrived. At 5:44 a.m., Igor and Mario were recorded entering the elevator. Igor was holding his phone, visibly arguing with Mario. 20 minutes later, Mario and Marceli were seen leaving the apartment together. Instead of taking the elevator, they chose the stairs. Minutes later, cameras in the underground garage recorded them crossing the parking area and exiting through the main door. This footage was supported by multiple witness testimonies. Neighbors described hearing shouting from the apartment, yelling filled with rage and despair. According to some, one of the men seemed consumed by fury, screaming that he had been betrayed by those closest to him. He shouted that he loved a woman madly, but that everyone around him had conspired against him while he was left in the dark. These accounts led investigators to their first working theory. The crime was fueled by passion triggered by the discovery of betrayal within the family circle. With evidence in hand, police identified three main suspects: Marceli, 20, Mario, 23, and Rafaela, 26. A judge issued immediate arrest warrants ordering the trio held for 30 days. But when authorities moved in, the suspects were gone. They had fled. As the investigation unfolded, a new layer of tension emerged. Investigators learned that while driving with Igor earlier that night, Mario had received a phone call. His phone was connected to the car's multimedia system, and on the dashboard screen appeared the caller's name, Rafaela. Stunned, Igor realized what this meant. At first, he fell silent, but within seconds, silence gave way to rage. He demanded answers. The celebratory mood dissolved into fury and suspicion. Igor bombarded Rafaela with calls and messages, but she never responded. He opened the location-sharing app they both used and discovered she was at Marceli's apartment. Enraged, he demanded Mario drive him there immediately. Warned by Mario and the flood of messages, Rafaela slipped out of the apartment as quickly as she could. It was in the narrow window of time that followed, once the two men reached the apartment, that the tragedy unfolded. The Peretto family was left devastated. Their grief was compounded by scandal, accusations, and the haunting question of who would raise Igor's children. It was their paternal grandmother who eventually took custody. On September 6th, less than a week after the killing, Marceli and Rafaela surrendered voluntarily to the civil police. Around the same time, Mario's abandoned vehicle was located near a post office. Inside, investigators found what appeared to be bloodstains on the gearshift and seat, along with a bottle bearing similar marks. The car was seized and sent for forensic analysis. Days later, police received an anonymous tip from one of Igor's brothers. Acting on that information, authorities closed in and captured Mario, ending his brief time on the run. He was found hiding in a house more than 200 meters from Praia Grande, belonging to one of Rafaela's uncles. He was taken into custody immediately. With all three suspects arrested, interrogations began, and contradictions quickly surfaced. Though each gave a different version of events, all agreed on one detail. Rafaela and Mario were involved in a secret relationship. Marceli insisted she only learned of the affair that very night. Rafaela went further, admitting that during the early hours of that morning, she and Marceli shared an intimate encounter, though she emphasized it was the first and only time. Through her lawyer, Marceli explained that when Igor and Mario arrived, she was alone, half-dressed, and under the influence of alcohol and other substances. She claimed she heard them arguing, but assumed it was just another fight, and chose not to interfere. According to her statement, while in a dressing room putting on clothes, she heard a loud crash. Igor had kicked a mirror and shattered it in a fit of rage. When she emerged, she found Igor gravely wounded. Mario argued he acted in self-defense, alleging Igor attacked him with shards of broken glass from the shattered mirror. His defense produced photographs of bruises and cuts on his face and hands, but these were taken 15 days after the crime, raising doubts about their reliability. Rafaela denied any direct involvement in the killing. She said Igor had previously threatened to kill her if she ever betrayed him, so she fled the apartment out of fear. Later, while driving toward her mother's house, she claimed to have received a message from Mario saying he had to drug Igor to calm him down and warned her to stay away because Igor might harm her. According to her statement, it wasn't until the following morning at a gas station meeting arranged with Mario and Marceli that she learned Igor was dead. Shocked and unable to process the news, she nevertheless followed her in-laws as they planned their next moves. At one point, she left Marceli with her family while she accompanied Mario to buy clean clothes. The two then checked into a hotel where Mario showered and changed. Soon after, Rafaela abandoned him and returned to the city. Detectives, however, pieced together a very different story. Their working hypothesis was that Rafaela and Mario conspired together. Screenshots of text messages exchanged before the killing revealed conversations about spending the night together to celebrate a sports championship victory. For prosecutors, the motive was twofold. Igor stood in the way of their relationship, and his death would benefit them financially. Mario would become sole owner of the motorcycle dealership, while Rafaela, as the mother of Igor's son, would gain inheritance rights. Marceli, as Mario's wife, would also benefit indirectly. On that basis, all three were formally charged with aggravated homicide on grounds of vile motives, premeditation, and use of methods that prevented the victim from defending himself. Investigators emphasized that Igor was killed by people he trusted, making the betrayal even more striking. In response, the suspects adjusted their stories. Rafaela denied helping Mario hide, despite his arrest at her uncle's property. Marceli claimed she saw nothing due to intoxication and denied letting Mario into the apartment, insisting he entered on his own with a code he already knew. All three described Igor as unstable, violent, and threatening. Prosecutors rejected these claims. They pointed out the shattered furniture had collapsed onto Igor, suggesting he was pushed, not that he caused the damage himself. They noted that if Mario truly acted in self-defense, the injuries would not number in the dozens, and at least one suspect would have sought medical help rather than fleeing. Marceli's defense requested a second autopsy, though it was unclear what they hoped to gain. This move angered some of Igor's siblings, who accused her of trying to delay the process and prolong the family's suffering. By now, one fact was undeniable. The case had become one of Brazil's most complex and emotionally charged criminal trials, fueled by betrayal, hidden relationships, and financial motives. The courts ruled that Rafaela, Marceli, and Mario would remain in preventive detention without a fixed release date, awaiting trial. Throughout 2025, multiple hearings were held. New witnesses testified, the civil police delegate responsible for the early investigation appeared, and additional evidence was presented. It was revealed the trial would likely proceed before a jury. By early July, after the evidentiary phase concluded, the tribunal denied all requests for release. The judge cited the unusual brutality of the crime, manipulation of evidence, and attempts to flee as justification for keeping them behind bars. As of today, the case remains before the courts. Brazilian society follows the proceedings closely, waiting for a verdict. Will justice prevail? Or will the tangled web of contradictions, betrayals, and alleged manipulation obscure the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.